Dozens of protesters gathered in Hong Kong on Monday to show solidarity with rare displays of defiance in mainland China over the weekend. In a city that is no stranger to anti-government protests, people brought flowers and candles. I'm here because I don't quite agree with mainland China's policies on COVID, says this resident. Small-scale vigils and protests have popped up in a number of cities around the world following extraordinary scenes of protest in China over the weekend. A display of unprecedented civil disobedience since leader Xi Jinping assumed power a decade ago. The catalyst for demonstrations was an apartment fire in China's Xinjiang region that killed 10 people. Many speculated that COVID curbs had hindered rescue, which city officials denied. China's strict COVID policy has become a lightning rod for frustration, although it has kept the country's death toll much lower than many other countries. In Sydney, about 200 people gathered outside its town hall to show support for protesters.
We as Australians have to be a voice for China.
Similar scenes unfolded in London and Tokyo over the weekend. On Monday, people gathered outside the U.S. State Department in Washington, with White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby adding this.
Our message to peaceful protesters around the world is the same and consistent. People should be allowed the right to assemble and to peacefully protest policies or laws or dictates that they take issue with.
And British Foreign Secretary James Cleverly issued this warning.
Protests against the Chinese government are rare. And when they do happen, I think the world should take notice, but I think the Chinese government should take notice.
Still, from his home in Portugal, Chinese artist and dissident Ai Weiwei said he was skeptical about protests shaking the government.
So it's very easy to just arrest them and move on.
On Monday, a Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson said Beijing was not aware of any protests abroad calling for an end to its zero COVID policy. Asked about protests at home, he said the question did not, quote, reflect what actually happened, adding that China believed the fight against COVID would be successful with the leadership of the party and the cooperation of the people.
Dr. Gulrez Sheikh is a geopolitical analyst, and he joins us from Indore, India, to discuss the ongoing COVID-19 protests in China. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, China could soon be witnessing a fourth year of its zero COVID policy. Why are the protests inside China and across the globe gaining momentum now?
See, these aren't the spontaneous protests, and we saw them coming step by step. We saw the bank failure protests in China. We saw the Shanghai crackdowns with the typical Chinese type of characteristic, the CCP type of characteristics. In October, in Beijing, just before the grand meeting of Chinese Communist Party, which granted the third term to President Xi, there came a banner on the bridge, and it was written on that banner, no COVID restrictions, we want to eat. No restrictions, we want freedom. No lies, we want dignity. No cultural revolution, we want reforms. No leaders, we want votes. Votes in China. It was written there. By not being slaves, we can be citizens. Go on strike, whether in school or on work. Remove dictator or national traitor. Come on, national traitor. It was for Xi Jinping. So we saw all these things coming. We saw the Chinese society was boiling from inside. And you know what was the biggest trigger point? It was the FIFA World Cup. People were watching on their mobiles, on television screens, that whole world is leading a normal life, but not Chinese. They have to be in lockdowns. They have to be stuck in their homes. They have those awful mobile applications which is stressing them everywhere. So combined with their FIFA World Cup and that high-rise fire in Uruchi, in Xinjiang, the things came on ground and people came with their wrists in the air against the dictatorial regime.
So, do you believe that these protests are just against COVID-19 restrictions, or can we point a finger at President Xi Jinping, who is continuing to cement his dominance as a Chinese president?
We have seen in history, in recent history as well as in past history, that protests start in many places for social issues, whether it is social issue or economic issue, but soon they take the political form. We saw in Tunisia a person, a greengrocer, a fruit seller, burned himself because he was maltreated by a policewoman, and and that action of that person shook the society, brought the people on the streets, and we saw a dictator going away. We saw same thing in Tahrir Square on Egypt, and we saw Hosni Mubarak going away. Even if you go in the past, even the French Revolution, it came because of the social issues, and then it became a political movement. So there is high possibility of such social issues and such social protests becoming political. But it will be too early to say, because you never know how the Chinese regime is going to react, because communists, they can react in any way. They can be very violent as well. But the whole world is watching. So I think they will have some restrictions in using of violence, but we never know. But we can say that unlike Tiananmen Square, this is not as strong as Tiananmen Square, but it is much wider in its geographical area. We can see such things happening in eastern part of China. We can see such protests in Shanghai, in Beijing. Even the universities, the elitist of the universities from where the CCP leadership comes, even they are on the road. Those students are on the road, and they are armed with social media. You can ask me that since there is no WhatsApp, there is no Twitter, there is no Facebook, there's a firewall. So all these videos, from where they are coming, there is something called as a VPN, and people are using VPN. They are also using the Chinese version of Twitter, the Vivo. And now the government of China is accepting that things are going out of the hand, because Wu Zijin, who was the former editor-in-chief of Global Times, he himself has accepted things are going like that. So things are not very positive for Xi Jinping nor for the Chinese Communist Party, but it's too early to say. But I can tell you these protests have a potential of going political, going for political reforms and change.
So do you see China's COVID restrictions as measures being used by the Chinese government to not only curb movement, but also to keep a more watchful eye over individual activities?
The Chinese Communist Party want to control all the aspects of life of its own population. But right now, I don't think that this is the issue. Why China and Chinese government is fearful of COVID? Because right now they are having highest number of cases in the world. On Sunday, China was having 40,000 new positive COVID cases versus the same number of population of India. India was having 140. So 40,000 versus 140 cases. And you know why it's happening? Because Chinese vaccines does not work thanks to their vaccine nationalism. They denied the foreign vaccines, and their own vaccines are not working. Many analysts say that the Sinovac, the vaccine which has been most widely used by the Chinese government, has efficacy of only 35%, 30 to 35%, that's all. So the population is not immune, and that is the reason Chinese government is scared of letting people loose, because if you look at the number of ICU beds, intensive care unit beds in China, it is just 3 for every 100,000 people, and 1 in 5 of the Chinese people above the age 60, they have not taken vaccines because they don't trust their vaccines. China has vaccinated a lot of people, around the same number of people like India. But Indian vaccines and American vaccines and European vaccines, they are working. Chinese vaccines doesn't work. That is the reason they are scared of opening China. And that is the reason which is leading to the boil in the society, which we can see on the streets. Society is boiling from inside. People doesn't have to anything to eat. They are fed up with the COVID restrictions and lockdowns.
Dr. Gulrez Sheikh, thank you for your analysis.